Hi, welcome to another Retronaut video. Now, this video is going to be somewhat unusual because it's not going to be really about retro computers or my experiences with them or other related technology. Instead, I'm actually going to talk about retro computing as a subject on YouTube and in general. The reason why I'm doing this is because over the last few days, because this is actually being recorded about 10 days after the 2024 New Year, the 8-Bit Guy did a year in review on his channel. Neil from Retro Man Cave did the same thing for his channel, and also the various things that he has going on there in his museum and the arcade downstairs and so on and so forth. And also I saw another video by a British YouTuber called CTRL-ALT-Ress. He specializes in Atari videos mainly. And his sort of reaction mainly to, well, yeah, it was only to the 8-Bit Guy's video because he hadn't actually seen the Retro Man Cave video at that time. It hadn't actually come out yet. So yeah, this is probably going to be a little bit rambling, this video, because I'm going to be talking about lots of different things and my viewpoint on them as much as anybody else's. You know, I think I have a view as well. Don't worry, it's not going to be salty. I'm not particularly upset by what anybody actually said. In fact, most of it actually was pretty positive, I think. I'll actually say the usual YouTube-y likey bit at the beginning here. If you do like this video, then obviously click the like button. And if you did like this video, then please subscribe to the channel, because if you don't do that, people won't know that you like this video and other people won't find out as well about this video. And if you don't subscribe, you're not going to get any notifications about any new videos that we produce in the near future. Obviously, not every video is going to be like this. Don't worry. This is going to be not really a one-off, but maybe this isn't your typical video. Let's put it that way. So let's move on and talk about some of the points that came up in the various different videos. Yeah, David Murray brought up the point that his ad revenue on YouTube was down to about 20 or maybe even as bad as 10% of what it was in 2020. So he then went on to recount a number of reasons why that happened. And he said that because his ad revenue on YouTube was so low, he was basically having to rely on Patreon money to keep the channel going. I'm not really sure how much of that is true. I mean, he does have other revenue streams coming in. He has Commander X16. He has his own video games, but of course he does profess that they don't really make any money. So yeah, I can see why that might be a problem. You know, you've got to bear in mind that David was one of the first people to actually do these kinds of videos. He kind of evolved into it, as far as I understand it. CTRL-ALT-Ress talks about that, how originally he was doing videos on, I think it was science or something like that. And then, you know, he built a studio and that wasn't really going anywhere. And then as a complete off chance, he started doing repair videos on some of his old, I think it was MacBook laptops, and they turned out to be quite popular. And that's how he ended up becoming the 8-Bit Guy. So that, you know, it's quite interesting. So I think the point I'm trying to make there is that, you know, David didn't start off this field as a kind of quest. It wasn't like a deep desire for him to go out and talk to people about the good old days and retro computers. He kind of evolved into it. You know, his channel on YouTube kind of pivoted to start talking about it. And that's fine. You know, that's the way it goes sometimes. You know, you decide you want to do some stuff on YouTube maybe, and, you know, it just isn't working. People aren't interested in what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you start talking about lawnmowers and everybody wants to know about that. And he was passionate about his MacBook. So, yeah, you know, a marriage was made, and I think that's fine. I think that's perfectly valid, to be honest. His reasons that his ad revenue went down was, you know, we all went through the pandemic, and I was on the other side of the lens. I probably started watching retro channels and during the pandemic, and I think David was one of the main guys. I think LGR as well was a name I could think of, but there were other people. And what I found was that I was actually interested, in the views of American retro computer users. And the reason for that is that I had a pretty good exposure to retro computers over here in the UK in the 1980s. I certainly didn't use all of them. I had very little exposure to a BBC Micro, to be honest. They were in school, but for various reasons, I didn't do IT in school, mainly because it was really boring and it seemed to be all about doing word processing. And there I was in my house doing 6502 assembly coding, and I just felt it was a bit irrelevant. And that might have been arrogant, but that's what I felt. And in retrospect, looking back, I think it was the right decision, actually. I don't think I would have learned that much. But Commodore 64s, Dragon 32, Spectrums, what else? Yeah, Atari as well. A friend of mine had an Atari 8-bit computer. So I did have, reasonable exposure to the machines over here. I didn't have an exposure to machines in America. And that's why I think David Murray's videos, LGR's videos, they were interesting, because you're seeing, the retro computing experience from a different viewpoint where, for instance, Apple II computers were a thing. That actually led to me buying my first actual retro computer, since I owned them back in the day, and that was actually an Apple II. So anyway, yeah, many other people were doing that. David is now finding that obviously people from the pandemic have gone back to, surfing and weaving cat slippers and, various other useful things, taking drugs maybe, and paragliding and various other things. And they're just not really that interested in looking at old men talking about old computers anymore. And that's fair enough. And I don't know how much of that is true, but that's what he feels it is. He feels that, now it's over, everybody's given up, and, his channel's gone down the tubes a little bit because of that. Who can tell? Another reason that he gave, and this really rubbed up CTRL-ALT-Ress very badly, was he feels that there are too many YouTube retro computing channels now. And he said explicitly in his video that he wasn't angry about this, but he did actually come across as being a little bit miffed about the fact that he was having to compete with other YouTube channels. And I can understand why. He had a purple patch of, 3 years maybe, where he was probably making a ton of money. And he's actually saying now that, he wasn't making that much money at all. But let's face it, he quit work to go and rely on the money he was making from his retro channel. So let's say he was making enough money to fill in the total revenue from, in his voice, an upper middle class salary. That's not bad, And as a result of him quitting work, he went off and got to do something that he actually loves a lot more than what he used to do as a job. I don't actually know what he did as a job. But whatever it wasn't as interesting as retro computers. And so therefore, he's now living the dream. And he feels that, other channels such as my own, Reese's, maybe even, Man Cave, etc., they are competing with him, and they're stealing his thunder. That's fair enough. That's his viewpoint, and I can understand it. He did make a really odd comparison, saying that he remembered the time when the iPhone came out and pretty much every app on it was junk, but they sold anyway because there wasn't anything else on the marketplace. But then, when serious apps came out, those junk apps didn't make money anymore because you had to have lots of advertising compete with actual, serious content, which I found odd, because it's almost like he's comparing his channel to junk and saying that the only reason why he's successful was because there wasn't any other material of its type on YouTube. I actually think that's obviously very unfair, because I really like David's videos, and I think he did innovate a great deal and actually produce a lot of really great content. And I think he did help to get this field going. So, I've got respect for him for doing that. And I think he should, maybe think about his videos a bit more kindly than that, actually. He also said that he'd lost about 50% of his Patreons, which is sad, to be honest. What I would like to see is more Patreons being spread out across more content creators. But who knows, maybe this subject, it has a relatively low ceiling in terms of the number of people that are interested in it. It is not American football. It is not soccer in the UK. It is not tennis. It is not Formula One. It's a relatively niche interest, and within that niche, there are smaller niches. Some people do videos on mini computers from the 1960s and 70s. Some people do videos only on repairs, and not everybody is interested in those videos. Me, I'm a sort of retro Sponge, I really like all of it, just to one degree or another, but not everybody does. Some people are interested in only Spectrums, you know, or Ataris. So yeah, you know, it's not going to necessarily be the kind of subject that just has an unlimited number of viewers that we can pull in. So unfortunately, we're going to have to share Patreons, and we're going to have to share ad revenue. I must admit, I have no Patreons and I have no ad revenue. Right now, I think I have 80 subscribers. This is in, what was it, January 10th, 2024. And at the current rate of my subscriber accrual, it will take me 2 years before I make any money from this channel. So yeah, I know David feels unhappy about the amount of ad revenue he's getting right now, but believe me, it's literally infinitely more than I'm getting. So, you know, it's not so bad, is it really? YouTube Shorts. He said they were not interesting. And I must admit, I don't think they're interesting either. I think obviously it is a land grab by you-know-who to try and fight off you-know-who. And I do feel, you know, that I shouldn't necessarily be pressured into producing shorts. Retro Man Cave does actually talk about this, and he says that, you know, he wants to appease the great YouTube gods, and therefore he does it for that reason. I've done a couple of them. I think they're interesting enough in that they possibly are a way of flagging, you know, that you might be doing something in the future, or you might want to do a little bit of fun. But I'm not necessarily sure they are the right avenue for our own channels, because generally when we talk about retro computing, we talk about it for like at least 10 minutes. So a 60-second short, it's not really the right way to deal with retro computing in my mind. But, you know, it's another thing that YouTube want to do. You know, there's very low engagement, I think, really. I've got one short that I did, which was about the Spectrum Next. I actually have a Spectrum Next over there, which I'm going to review at some point when I can get round to it. And I really, really want to get round to it. And I got 232 views. Yeah, you know, I have a small channel, which is a lot for my channel, actually. And I got 0 comments. And that's what I think shorts are. You know, most people who watch them are not really interested in what they're seeing. They're just seeing it because YouTube's decided to put that in front of them, and they're not interested and they don't care. But there we are. I'll keep on trying to do shorts as an experiment. So if you're not interested in them yourself, it's up to you if you want to watch them, but we'll see. Maybe they have some kind of benefit to this channel. We'll have to see how it goes. David oddly thought that maybe people were watching more shorts these days. You know, that's part of his sort of mindset. He thinks that, you know, everybody's just watching people, you know, watching cats typing and frogs on a trampoline and various other videos like that. And I don't think that's true. I think, you know, the retro viewer base is a more mature, definitely a more mature viewer base. And I think we've got a bit more of an attention span than the typical TikTok viewer. So I don't really think we've all just slipped off watching endless YouTube shorts. Do you? But that's his view. Anyway. He said that he doesn't make as many videos as he used to. He said that basically last year he made about 45% of the number of videos that he would normally make. And, you know, that's pretty telling because, you know, you make less videos, you're going to make less ad revenue, right? You would expect to make at least, you know, what was it, 55% less ad revenue with the same number of viewers looking at the same number of videos. It's, you know, like for like. So that makes sense that he's, you know, he's going to end up with basically 45% of the ad revenue that he used to. Now he's saying he's getting 20%. Now then, this is the point, I think, you see, because I think David has gone off topic a lot recently. And I don't mind that. I actually enjoy his videos about solar panels, and I enjoy his videos about his house getting frozen and it flooding. And that's because I like to find out about other people. And I think it's interesting to see, you know, David's life and how he tries to make the YouTube videos. I personally find that quite interesting. I find his Commander X16 videos interesting enough, although, you know, to a degree, because I'm not personally probably going to buy it myself. And I also find his videos on him making his own video game, Petsky Robots, also interesting as well, again, to a degree. I think he's probably done a few too many videos on those subjects because they're not the core subject of his channel. Traditionally, the core subject of his channel is repairing Amigas, repairing Apple IIs, looking at how Apple IIs work, doing history videos about different machines. And that is actually what the retro industry is based on. It's not really based on doing personal projects. Although, you know, you can have a little bit of that in there because I think it, you know, it gives an extra bit of color and dimension to David as a person. And I think that's okay. But yeah, you know, going on and on about Petsky robots and going on about the Commander X16 is not going to help his revenue if people are switching off and going to other channels which actually do provide the kind of videos that he used to provide. And I think David needs to think about that. He doesn't have to do it. You know, maybe it's just boring him doing the same videos, as he said, over and over again. He said he doesn't want to do repair videos. That's okay. Don't do repair videos. But those people that did find those videos interesting, they're going to go elsewhere. And there are other channels who, you know, you've got people who've got some kind of electrical engineering background. You know, they've got all the right oscillators and they got the right soldering irons and so on. And they do maybe a better job of it. And that's hard to compete with. What's he going to do, you know? He only has so many hours in the day, so you can't compete with everybody. So he said he's going to concentrate on doing videos on history, and I think that's a good idea. I like his videos on history. I've got ideas about doing them myself as well. I really like that form. So I'm really looking forward to David doing more videos on, you know, other computers in the future. He brings up the topic of sponsorship, and he was a bit sneery about it. You know, he thinks that it's kind of beneath him to do sponsorship. And it is a little bit of a controversial subject. Having any kind of advertising on your videos on YouTube, it's not necessarily something that you would want. But at the end of the day, YouTube have to pay for the servers that these videos stream shot from. And they use a lot of energy. And my God, you know, you've got to buy the computers and the storage space. You've got to bear in mind that YouTube hosts a huge amount of junk content. There's a lot of content, hopefully not mine. There's a lot of content on YouTube, which is just rubbish. And YouTube still have to serve it to people when they click on those links. And that costs money. And they're probably not going to make any money from a lot of the videos. So unfortunately, the onus goes on to those who make better videos to make money back from YouTube. And when you get to a certain number of subscribers and a very large number of views, you then start to get a cut of that money. David has already, you know, crossed that Rubicon. He's getting money, and that's fine. And therefore, he doesn't think he needs to have sponsors. Personally, I don't mind them. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing. Like PCBWay, for instance, they're pretty ubiquitous on Retro Channel's videos. It's a little bit tedious when you come across the obligatory PCBWay video. I skip them most of the time, and the only reason why I do that is because I know what they do. They seem to be a very interesting company. They do some really good products from what I can see. A lot of people in the field use them. And I think their sponsorship is completely on target. And I actually think it's helped the retro field massively. You know, their sponsorship of videos has put a lot of money into people's pockets, and it's allowed them to buy equipment and computers and make interesting videos. Neil from Retro Man Cave talks about that. He said, you know, they literally built his channel. You know, if you can take a few seconds of explanation about PCBWay or some other topic, it's probably a necessary evil. And, you know, if I do want to buy a PCB in the future, then I would think about going to PCBWay because they seem to be a decent company. There are other companies I could use, obviously. Merchandise. He talks about merchandise, says it's not really worth it for him anymore. I can kind of sympathize with him in that regard because in 2004, something I haven't really talked about on this channel yet, I had a business to do training for 3D software. At that time, it wasn't viable to download those videos, so I did them on DVD. And I literally had to take a bag full of DVDs to the local post office every lunchtime. And I was actually working at the time, so I had to do that in my own time. And to be honest, it was pretty laborious. However, you know, I made that choice and I did it, and it made me, you know, a decent amount of money back in the day. Now, David's saying that for his channel, that merchandise isn't really worth it anymore. He was spending like 30% of his time, his entire time, doing merchandise, and he wasn't making that much revenue from it, and therefore he's decided to sub that out to other channels. I don't think merchandise is a bad thing necessarily. You know, at some point in the future, maybe I'll make a nice Retronaut t-shirt, and you can have the Retronaut helmet on your chest with the logo. I wouldn't mind having that t-shirt. Actually, it would look quite cool, I think. But I think in the right place, merchandise is okay, and it's just sad that it's not working for him. I'm sorry for him in that regard. It can get out of hand. I used to like Linus Tech Tips, but in the last couple of years, almost every video spent about 20% of the time trying to sell Linus Tech Tips underwear, various other ridiculous things that had nothing to do with the channel. And it was just pushed in your face constantly. And I think they thought it was cheeky the way they were doing it, and I just found it really obnoxious. And recently it's turned out that that channel has turned out to be a sort of a cesspit. And, you know, over commercialism can be very distasteful and people don't like it. And I don't think David was doing that at all. So I'm sorry that, you know, his merchandising hasn't really worked out for him, but there we go. David said that he's building an arcade with his brother and other partners. And, you know, despite the fact saying that he's, you know, very short on money, that sounds like a big money enterprise. Buying a PCB for an arcade machine would probably cost you about £200. And then the entire machine, I'm assuming, would cost you anywhere between £300 and maybe £2,000. I'm assuming some arcade machines are very rare these days and cost a lot of money to buy. On top of that, of course, he's got to do all the other work. So it sounds like he's going to be very busy on that this year. And if you're not interested in that, that's going to drop his ad revenue on his channel. Personally, I am interested. I love arcade games. I bought 2 myself, and I hope to be doing some videos on those in the future. They're actually Mr. Do games, if you want to know what they are. I loved Mr. Do back in the day. The original Mr. Do and also Mr. Do's Castle. I've only bought the PCBs. I'm hoping that I can in the future build machines for those to fit into. So yeah, you know, I'm really interested in arcade games because let's face it, that's where video games started. And back in the 80s, they were much better than microcomputers games. So yeah. So, you know, he's got to be careful that he can't be upset that he's losing revenue if he's going to do these videos, which basically move away from his core subject. So let's talk about CTRL-ALT-Ress's response. So, you know, Ress seemed to be pretty upset because, you know, he's one of these 100, I'm paraphrasing David, I don't think he actually said this, but he said, you know, there are hundreds of YouTubers and they're kind of taking away his views, maybe, you know, stealing his views. I don't think that's the case. And I think that really rubbed up Ress the wrong way. And I can see why. You know, Ress has been doing his videos for quite a few years. And he's put in a lot of dedication and he's built up, you know, a good following. And I think he deserves his success. I think, you know, I like Ress's videos, except about the one about the dragon where he called it a weird machine. Still not forgiven him for that. But apart from that, I think his videos are great. And he's very dedicated to Atari. And I think he does some really interesting, you know, videos on that topic. You know, David said that he wasn't upset about the competition, but he does seem to be upset. And yeah, you know, that rubbed up Ress the wrong way. It didn't rub me up the wrong way myself. I personally could see where he was coming from, David. I think he was wrong. Maybe he could have expressed it better or not expressed it at all. I don't know. I suppose he had to say it, you know, but it could come across badly to other people who are putting in a lot of effort, just like he did, and trying to do good videos on retro. And, you know, that's what we're doing. I'm doing these videos and I don't feel guilty about it for David. You know, I'm older than him. I was doing retro computing before he was even born, I think. Possibly, maybe not. But, you know, I've got something to say about it. Lots of other people have got things to say, and I think all of our viewpoints are valid. So unfortunately, David will have to share the space with everybody else, and that's just the way it is. David's contribution to the field. I think David's an important person in the whole retro computing community. I don't think that he invented it necessarily. He kind of stumbled into it, doing his repair videos. That evolved into, you know, what became the 8-bit guy. But to be fair to him, he has created a lot of the archetypes that we use. You know, the repair video, I think he innovated that. Some of the sort of more documentary videos, again. Until other people started doing it, David was one of the sole people out there doing it, along with, say, LGR. LGR was what? More sort of reviews and quirky videos on old computers, mainly PCs. So yeah, you know, I think everybody in this field should try and contribute and innovate. That's just the way it is, you know? How do I feel about advert revenue? So it's a necessary evil, as I said. You know, we all kind of have to do it. You could do this as a sort of totally sort of amateur hobby, a little bit like back in the 70s, you played rugby as an amateur sport, you know, and it's a little bit like that in, you know, in retro computing. There's a sort of puritanical feel that we should do it for the love of it and we shouldn't make any money out of it. And I don't think that's realistic. If you're trying to do a YouTube channel and you're trying to do it better than David Murray, you're going to have to buy better equipment than him. And you're going to have to spend more time doing research than him. That costs money. The cameras that you're using to make your videos have to be expensive. Otherwise it looked like junk. You have to buy lights. You have to make a studio. Well, you don't have to make a studio, but I did. That costs money. That costs time and money. And so at the end of the day, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to ask for some financial return from, your time and a lot of the money that you put in. I've seen videos with Adrian's Digital Basement where he's talked about his cameras, and I've looked up those cameras. I can't afford them. They're like £1,000 a pop. I actually record my channel on my personal iPhone, which is actually a new iPhone, and my old iPhone. It's an iPhone 6S, and I use that for doing basically teleprompting, which helps me to read out things when I have to be, factual and go through a list of things. These things cost. The iPhone costs what? Over £1,000. The old iPhone, luckily, I still have it, the one I replaced, and I use that. These lights, they all cost money. This table costs money. I made this myself, actually, but it's from a recycled kitchen, actually. And I'll be doing some videos on this. But it took me weeks to make these tables, literally a week, in the summer last year to make these tables. So yeah, why not make a little bit of money? If you're not vulgar about it, if it's not like money grabbing, like I said with Linus Tech Tips, that is money grabbing, that channel, and I really can't stand watching it anymore because of that. But if your channel is not vulgar about making money, I think it's okay. It's not a problem. Everybody, I think, appreciates the fact that you have to buy computers. Some of the computers that I've bought cost a lot of money. And maybe if I can recoup some of that money by making these videos, that's not a bad thing. I think it's okay. Am I looking myself personally to make enough money to quit work and do this full time? I don't think I am, but it would be nice to have the option. So yeah, that's what I think about, commerciality. I think it's okay. I'm not against making some money. I also have to, hire Photoshop to do the graphics, Premiere Pro to do the video editing. And like I said, you have to buy all the cameras and lights. And there's a good example. I bought an oscilloscope to repair the Amiga 4000. I just couldn't do it without an oscilloscope. I'm not an electronics person. All of a sudden, I found that I had to see if there was any chip activity. And I could have bought a logic probe, but I just thought, you know what, it'd be good to see the waveforms because you can't always tell using a logic probe exactly what's happening. I bought an oscilloscope. It's an 01, I think it's a 1022i, and it's a 25 megahertz scope. And I used it for fixing the Amiga 4000 and it did the job. And I've got that machine fixed and I'm very happy about that. You may have watched my video on the Fujitsu Ergo Pro. I started to renovate that machine. It's now not working. I don't know why. I'm measuring the clocks on it, and unfortunately it's got a 66 megahertz clock, which gets multiplied up to the actual clock speed of the Pentium. And I can't measure it with my oscilloscope, so I'm having to sell that oscilloscope. It cost me £100, and I'm now having to buy a £300 oscilloscope to replace it. I was in a discussion with, what's the name of the guy? Tony359? He needs to change the name of his channel. It's not the easiest name to remember. I love his videos, and he was saying to me, don't get that, get a higher end oscilloscope like a Rigol or something like that. And I just couldn't justify the cost. So if I had some ad revenue, if I had some patrons, then maybe I could have actually, splashed the cash and got the better oscillator, which would then help me to make better videos. That's the way it goes. Unless you completely payroll these things yourself, you're going to limit what you're going to be able to do on your channel. And therefore people won't find it as interesting. So, money's a factor. We have to spend money on these things. How do I feel about Patreon myself? Well, I think it's okay. In fact, right now, I literally cannot make any money out of this channel, probably for 2 years, unless I get Patreon going. I do actually have a Patreon channel set up. I haven't actually specified everything yet, all the different tiers and so on. I didn't think it was worth it at this point. I don't have that many subscribers. I don't have that many viewers. And I wanted to concentrate more on making the material and making the videos as good as I could. There's enough to think about without actually thinking about that as well. But in the near future, I do need to get that set up. And that is probably the only way I'm going to make any money out of this material for the next 2 years. Just like ad revenue, I've got no problems with Patreon whatsoever. I think it's a cool feature and it's something which I'll be looking into. The next point is very controversial, so I'll try and tread as lightly as I can. Reese was a bit upset about David Murray's, the 8-Bit Guy's, views on gun ownership. I didn't know this, but apparently at some point in the past, there's a video of David Murray waving it around an assault rifle. Well, not waving it around. He's wearing it on his back in a shop. And he's trying to show people that that's a normal thing in America. And he doesn't feel like he should be pressurized not to have a gun. And apparently this is because of the Sandy Hook shootings. He felt that gun ownership was a bad thing. Sorry, he doesn't think it's a bad thing, David Murray. He felt that it was being portrayed as a bad thing. And he felt upset that his right to have a gun was being threatened. And he decided to put that in a video. I think that was misguided. But, you know, I don't live in America and I didn't grow up in that culture. All I can think is that that's part of the culture over there. And as a person, you know, living in Britain, growing up in British culture, I don't really have the right to criticize David too much about that. It's their right to have weapons, and that's what David is protesting about. Reese said that he didn't want to watch his videos anymore and that he had unsubscribed from David's channel because of that, and he wasn't going to watch his videos. In other words, he cancelled him. I wouldn't do that personally unless David did something pretty heinous that I really fundamentally, you know, disagreed with. At the end of the day, David has not committed any crimes and caused no offense to me. So I will carry on watching his videos, and I'll carry on doing that until he says something which I find very upsetting and you know, literally is deserving of being cancelled. But right now, you know, David's got his views and he's welcome to them. You know, he can do that. He's an individual. He can have guns and he can think that it's a good thing. I think it's maybe a little bit unwise to have that associated with his channel. I hope he didn't put it on his channel, because if he did, that isn't the right place. It's completely off topic, right? So yeah, maybe if he did put that video on his home channel, the 8-bit guy, then that's a mistake. Fair enough. But I don't know. I'm assuming he didn't do that. I'm assuming he put it on another channel. Yeah, you know, he's entitled to his views. He lives in the US. They have a different culture to over here. So, you know, we can't apply our standards over here to him over there. So let's move on now to talk about the Retro Man Cave and his 2023 review. How did I feel about that? Well, Neil starts off by talking about his channel, and he goes into the statistic of his channel. He's literally showing you the graphs of his channel, and he explains how his viewership has been doing through, you know, during the last year and some of the hit videos that he's had. Neil thinks that the retro field will benefit from more YouTube channels, which is interesting. It's sort of diametrically opposed to David. David feels that, you know, more channels will compete with him and therefore he will be poorer, which is one viewpoint, and he's probably got a point. You know, he is suffering a little bit right now. But at the same time, the more content there is, the more interest hopefully there will be, and that then should hopefully then rub off on David. Having said that, he's probably going to find that some of his stats have gone down. Having said that though, it's very telling. If you watch Neil's video, he doesn't show any decline in viewership. He says that, I think this year there was a 10% drop compared to last year. Last year, you're still sort of talking about, when I say last year, I'm talking about 2022, because don't forget, he's talking about 2023. And he was saying that in 2022, there was 10% more ad revenue than there was in 2023. And he feels that's because the pandemic ended and therefore people were watching less videos. Maybe also you start to see the growth of other channels. Because, you know, don't forget Neil, Retro Man Cave, he's been around for a long time, pretty much as long, I think, as David. So yeah, you know, it's kind of contradictory that Neil is seeing a 10% decline, whereas David is seeing what he said was, what, 55% decline in ad revenue. So that may back up the fact that Neil is still on topic, although to be fair, he has done a lot of videos about his channel and how they're building this museum, and some people might think that's a little bit off topic. I don't think it is actually. It is on topic, isn't it? He's building a museum about retro computers, so he's kind of kept a little bit more on topic than David. And his other off-topic videos, which are about arcade machines, and also talking about some charity and some of his talks and things like that, they're probably a little bit more on topic than maybe David's. And because of that, it looks like his ad revenue has not suffered as much as David's has. So I think that's quite interesting. And I think it's very interesting that he's got this very open view that basically the more people at the party, the better, basically. Whereas with David, he feels that the more people at the party, the less money he's going to make. What else does Neil talk about? He talks about a couple of his videos being superstars, and he doesn't really understand why they are. And I found that quite interesting. You know, there's a Nintendo point of sale machine, which he said was just massive. I don't really see why that is, unless maybe SNESs, you know, Nintendos are super, super hot. And, you know, what does that mean? Should we follow the views? When I did my own tech history series, I talked about a lot of different machines. There was the Binatone and the Amiga, the Commodore 64, blah, blah, blah. And I went back and I've looked at those stats, and there are some obvious winners in those videos. And I'm sure it's because some people just cherry pick certain videos that are talking about the Amiga 1500 or talk about the Amiga 4000 or the Commodore 64. And because of that, certain videos are more popular than other videos. What does that mean? Does that mean that I can't talk about the Dragon 32 because it didn't do as well as the Commodore 64? Or the Commodore 64 wasn't quite as popular as the Amiga 1500 or the 4000? I don't really think we should be doing that. I don't think we can really, you know, start changing our material to try and get more viewers. Because I think at the end of the day, what these channels are about is our own interest. You know, what I'm interested in. I don't really want to do videos just to show them to you to make money. I'm not interested in that. I want to be interested in it as much as you are. You know, that's why I bought this Fujitsu PC, because I almost owned one of these back in the day and I wanted to have one. So I care about it. You know, the Amiga 4000, I care about that. I owned one and I was very unhappy that I had to give it up. It's just the way it was. And now I've got one back and, you know, I went through the whole massive struggle of getting it repaired. Do you think I would have gone through that effort if I didn't actually really need, you know, want that machine back? No, of course not. I got that machine because I was passionate about it. And I really wanted that machine back in my ownership, you know? Some of the computers that I've bought, retro computers, I would probably sell them in the future because some of them are, let's just say they're not forever machines. You know, some of them I bought because I was interested during COVID. And, you know, I just wanted to have a look at these, and other machines I'm very passionate about and I will keep forever. But, you know, some of the machines will have to be sold on because I literally don't have enough room in my house to store the amount of computers that I would like to have, you know, so there's probably going to be a little bit of churn in the future. So yes, I might do some videos on some things which are a little bit more popular at some point, but only if it suits me. I'm not going to, you know, change my channel to make it super popular. I'm not that interested in SNESs. I'm not that interested in the Mega Drive. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're great machines. They're just not something that I was particularly passionate about because I am a creator. I worked in visual effects. I work as a software engineer. I am an artist. You know, I went to college. I was good at drawing. I'm a pretty decent illustrator. That's what I like doing. And what I never really liked about consoles was that you couldn't do anything on them. You know, so when I had my Atari 2600, I couldn't make anything on it. That's why I became more interested in microcomputers than consoles. That's why I'm not that interested in the SNES. It's a great machine, but it's not my core interest. So yeah, never say never. I might have a SNES because yeah, it's a cool machine. You know, maybe in the future I'll have a look at one, but it's not hot on the top of my list to, you know, look into things like that. I think in the last year, Neil, you know, has innovated in his presentation style, in what he presents, how he presents it. He's got these talks going on in the museum. Obviously, I can't do that. I don't have a museum. I can't have guests and I can't have, you know, 30 people sitting around while somebody espouses about whatever. I can't do that. But because he's got that situation, he can do that. And I think it's really interesting in his video that he explains to you how he's actually tried to make those videos more interesting by changing the venues during the video to make it more appealing. Rather than just a person standing in front of a desk talking about whatever, he's actually got them moving around. And I think that's really cool that he's open about his presentation style, that he's thought about how to make his videos more interesting and engaging. And I think that's always very interesting. And that's why you're going to get people out there making YouTube videos which are as good as Neil's. And I think we should all try and strive to do that, you know? Everybody should try and raise, you know, the quality of what we're doing in retro. You know, that's a goal, I think, which is a really cool thing. Neil talks about trying to make YouTube happy and trying to appease the algorithm. I'm not really sure how that's possible, really. At the end of the day, we're not dealing with a subject that's incredibly interesting to many, many people, as I've said earlier. It's very interesting to us retro guys and retro girls. You know, if you're passionate about old computers or if you have any kind of interest in it, then it's cool. But it's not mass market, is it? Let's face it. It's not, you know, 60-inch television, TV reviews. It's not washing machines, you know, something that everybody would buy, or a car review. It's relatively niche. But at the same time, he does try to make YouTube happy, and I'm not sure how much I would do that. I'm only going to make shorts myself if it suits me, but I'm not going to bend over backwards to make, in quotes, the algorithm happy, because at the end of the day, you've got to produce videos which are true to yourself, I think. And it just depends how much you want to bend to, you know, keep YouTube happy. Yeah, you know, shorts are an interesting thing, but at the end of the day, I found personally, like, you know, I got 0 comments on my short about the Spectrum. So I don't really know, you know, how engaging it is. You know, how much use was it to myself? In that, did it bring anybody into the channel and get me any new subscribers? What I felt uncomfortable at making that video is I do want to do a review of the Spectrum Next, but I haven't done it yet. So I did that short about the Spectrum Next, but I don't know how long it's going to be before I can actually then deliver on that promise and have those people looking at that short come to my channel and actually watch a video about the Spectrum Next. And there is the problem about the short, you see. If I'm using it as an advert, you need the product. And that forces you then to make the review, which takes time, by which point it's too late then to do the advert. You know, so it's very tricky. You know, shorts, I think, are something which are, you know, very difficult for us to deal with as sort of retro channels. It takes a lot of planning and strategy to think about how you're going to use a short. Neil said that, you know, PCBWay was a big thing. PCBWay is, you know, been a powerful good for his channel. And like I said earlier, I think PCBWay has been a powerful good in the retro field. They put a lot of money into a lot of different channels. It does get a bit tedious in that every single channel that you go to now, pretty much, there's a, you know, PCBWay advert. Some of them are quite lengthy as well. I'm hoping that's not, you know, because of pressure from PCBWay. Maybe that's just the creativity of the content provider. But, you know, they bring money into this field and they help to make better videos. Not directly, but with the money, they give people the, you know, the money to buy more computers and more equipment and, you know, to try and improve the art. So I don't really think that's a bad thing. You know, if sponsorship is targeted, then I really don't think it's evil. Neil talked about his inventory. Interesting, or not interesting, whichever way you look at it. I have bought a lot of computers over the last few years because of, you know, the pandemic. And I got to the point where I was starting to do this channel and I literally didn't know what I had. There were different things in different boxes. Certain boxes, I didn't know what was in them. So I decided to make an inventory. And I actually have a product that I've used to do that. And I will actually try and get sponsorship for that video, although I don't have the viewers yet. And I'll make a video about it because it's actually quite a cool piece of software. It's a database app. And I found it really useful because I needed to have an inventory and I was trying to keep track of when I bought the computers, how much I bought them for, because if I need to sell them for whatever reason, I don't want to sell them for less money than I bought them for, ideally. So it'd be good to keep track of how much I paid. And as a heads up, I found out that on eBay, they actually get rid of your records after a certain amount of time. And I've had some of these computers for 3 or 4 years. And they had actually gone off into the twilighting process. I did manage to get a CSV file from eBay. You can request that. And then I use that to make my database. But I caught it just in time. And I think some of the earliest things I bought, they just weren't listed there. So it's interesting that he brought that up, you know, that he needs to do that on his channel. But, you know, he does have a museum and he has a lot more items to keep track of. But, you know, if you're doing any kind of retro computing, it's not a bad thing to kind of keep track of what you've got. You can even share it with other people, you know, if you want to kind of tell them what machines you have and what equipment you have. What I found overall about Neil's video was it was very open. Neil wants the field to grow. That means that we must share this space and we must be open to others. You know, David Murray felt like he wants it maybe to stay small or to keep viewers just to his channel. I know he said he doesn't want to do that, but, you know, you kind of read between the lines a bit. And yeah, you know, that's why I think Reese felt a bit slighted. So I think it's interesting, you know, looking at these different viewpoints and what people feel about the whole sort of retro field right now. Where do I find myself? Well, I'm not going to go into that in this video. There's not really that much to say. I've released a number of videos Most of them were actually already pre-prepared. I have made some more new ones recently. Right now, I think I have 80 subscribers after about a month, which is not doing too badly, I suppose. Obviously, I need to grow the channel. I think you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of video viewed before you get any revenue from YouTube. And as I said, at my current rate, that's going to take 2 years. So yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'll just have to keep plugging away. I hope obviously you found this video interesting, and let me know in the comments what you feel about it. Is there anything here that you agree with, disagree with? Really interested to hear what you feel about, you know, the 8-Bit Guys state of the union address, as it were. Neil's, you know, from the Retro channel, what he said, the contrasting views that you had there. And then, you know, in the middle, you've got Reese being quite annoyed about the 8-Bit Guy, which I thought was a bit sad because personally, I think the 8-Bit Guy's heart is in the right place. Yeah, anyway, that's enough for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.